Hey, welcome to Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf, and as always, I am scouring the countryside looking for tips, tricks, things you can apply, best practices in your business to scale up, especially in high inflation and with the potential recession on the horizon. You read the title coming in today? It is April 1st, 2022. Unfortunately, the title for this episode is no joke. Interest rates 50% higher? Could you imagine that? You think that might happen? Well, guess what? They jumped 20%, prime rate jumped 20% at the Federal Reserve in 1 week during March. So we are now, oh geez, let me get my calculator going here. We are now 43% above the interest rates of a year ago. That's a 43% increase for the prime rate at Federal Reserve in 1 year. Yeah. Well, think about that. What's going to happen over the next several months? The problem with inflation, as you know, it eats your lunch. It is just horrible. Got some show and tell here for you. It is just horrible on your cash flow as a business owner, right? Because you've got prices prices you're paying going up. Your staff, your team is getting battered by things being more expensive. It's just this is what your rate looks like, right? What you're paying for things, what you're paying for your revolving credit to run your business, mortgages on homes, everything's going up. Gas pump, we've already had problems with inflation. It's getting way more expensive at the gas pump. It's almost 100% increase over the last 18 months. Some areas even worse. Where we're at, I've watched the discount gas go from 289 to 469 in the last 18 months. It's just been ridiculous. Food's getting more expensive. So everyone around you, your customers, they're getting squeezed by this. A lot of face palms happening because for those that are on fixed income, that causes problems. For those that have variable rate mortgages, that causes problems. For variable rate lending, that causes problems. It just burns your money without anything productive happening. So what do? Well, before we talk about that, if I can find it here, I want to share just a little bit more from the Federal Reserve. So here is from the Federal Reserve on their prime rate. So you can see, what do we got? So in May 2019, it's 5.5%, right? They're stepping it down going into 2019. But when the great lockdown happened, the big pandemic in 2020, slammed it as low as they could go in order to promote freeing up business, right? Making money cheap. So it's easier to invest, borrow money to improve capital equipment, cheaper to borrow money to do a lot of things, right? So people are spending, consumer spending goes up because it affects their interest rates on their credit cards. You know all this, right? It affects your rates. But here's what happened. So in March, they raised it 0.25%. So it went from 3.25 to 3.5. Okay. From 3.25 to 3.5. They're already announced they're going to raise it again in May and is expected to be 0.5%. So it'll go from 3.25 next month to 3.5, next month to 4. It's already, in April, they're going to raise it again. So it's already been announced, expected to be at 0.5% instead of 0.25% step because interest is getting out of control. Or not interest. Interest is getting out of control because the Fed is fighting inflation by raising the interest rate. So it go from 3.25 to 3.5 in March, from 3.5 to 4 in April, from 4 to 4.5 in May. How's that going to affect your business? How are you planning for that? What is that going to do to your suppliers? How's it going to affect your customers' business decisions? You need to be looking at this. You need to be talking to your CFO, to your finance people. You need to have good financial analysis on this and taking a hard look at your income statement and balance sheet to make sure you're solid. Where are the potential threats in it? What happens if it goes even further? Right? Mortgages are up. The interest rate on mortgages is up 40% in the last year. The monthly payment is up 20%. So if someone's making what you would cost you $1,000 payment is now $1,200. Someone who's paying $2,000 would be paying $2,400 on that. And that's just the start. So what happens is that continues to creep up. What happens to the people that have variable mortgages or other variable lending instruments that are keyed to the Fed prime rate? Be looking at that. Intelligent use of debt during inflationary times is good. It needs to be strategic, and it needs to be thought out. With interest rates climbing like that, we really wish it was an April Fool's joke. It is not. It is not. So look at that. Be talking to your accountant, talk to your bank, your financial institutions that you do business with that are helping you fund your business, and make sure that you are ready for a couple more percentage points. What if it goes from 3.25 to 6? There are some of the experts are saying that that is most. This is what surprised me. I was reading an article, and there's a financial expert that said, well, it's likely going to stop rising before it gets to 5%. It's very, very likely that it'll stop rising before it gets to 6. So guess what? That's the cap that they're looking at right now. They're going, well, 6 is in the realm of reality. Are you planning for that? Are you assessing what happens to your business if the Fed prime rate goes up to 6, 7, 8%? What about what we saw in the let's come back to this Fed chart. And I just had this for recent. What happens if we really do have something that repeats the 1970s, where we are, let me pull this back up, where we're looking at really runaway high interest with wild inflation, with wild swings in employment. So here, we'll stretch this out so you can see where we're at. But this is what it looked like in the late 70s, early 80s. So in 1970s, look, it's all over the place. It goes up to 8.5%, comes down to 5.25%, goes up to 12%. Right now, that's 1974 from the low of 1972. So in 2 years, went from 5. Actually, so that's, where are we there? So we're April 1972, 5%. In there's a peak. So in October of 1974, right? 2.5 years later, it's at 11.75%, right? More than doubles, drops back down, never gets back down to the 5.25, but drops back down to 6.5, 6.25 in January 1977. But look at this. By February of 1980, it's up to 16. It more than doubles again, and then goes up. It peaks at 21 in December of 1980. So think about that. In 3 years, it more than triples. What happens if that kind of scenario runs now? I'm not making a prediction that that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying you need to be working with your CFO, with your accountant, with your whoever it is that does your financial analysis for you. Or if you're doing it yourself, running a mid-sized business, you get 25 plus employees. You should not be doing that yourself. You need somebody in there that's running the numbers. You don't let go of the numbers, but you need somebody you can trust that's doing an analysis on this, so you can see, well, what happens if something crazy like this goes? 6 is very much in the realm of possibility. We're at 3.5 right now. What happens if it goes to 6? How does that affect your loans? How does it affect your mortgage? Your people that work for you? How does it affect them? What's going on in their lives? So be ready for that. What if it goes to 10, right? To go from 3.5 to 6 to 9 is not unrealistic. We saw that happen in the 70s and 80s, late 70s, early 80s. The problem is once inflation starts, it's very hard to get a handle on, and it can really build momentum and do crazy things. If interest rates are a blunt tool that the Federal Reserve has to work on moderating inflation by making the cost of money more expensive, right? So it slows things down, cools off spending money. We have a massive oversupply of money. We'll see how that works. That will blunt, because so much money was pumped into the economy. With printing presses have been running for a couple of years now because of how the government responded to stimulus. So that there's a whole extra bunch of money floating around the economy chasing goods and services that may require much more extreme money oversupply may result in extreme measures being required of the Fed. You could see 9, 10, 12% interest. Not a prediction, but smart people that make their living predicting stuff like this are saying 6 is in the realm of possibility. And we're seeing smart people like Ram Charan from the Wharton School. He is expecting the high inflation to run as long as 5 years. Be prepared. What are you going to do? How are you going to write that out? Where are your opportunities in that? So, this is the key, right? Correct the mindset here. The mindset right now is there's opportunities in this. You need to secure your business financially, dig into those financials, and then be on the lookout for the opportunities that are there. They're there now, and there's going to be more coming up over the next 3 to 5 years because we are going to have economic turbulence running at least 3 years. That's the over under from most of what I've been reading and hearing from experts on the economy. They're saying, yeah, this high inflation, this is going to cause problems. This is going to be with us 3 years. And some are saying 5. Let's talk about April Fools. That'll be a good topic, right? This is Friday, and this is not meant to be heavy information. This is just like, hey, look, wake up, pay attention to this, because you're in the window right now of when doing some really thorough financial analysis can benefit you massively before you get blindsided, right? Before you get a cold slap across the face with a big spike in interest rates that all of a sudden drive up a cost on something or put you in a financial structure where you violate a covenant on one of your loans and a loan gets called. Don't think that can happen? How well do you know the covenants in your loans? Okay, these are the things to look at, because as we talked about the last 2 episodes, no need to don't panic. And right now there's no need to panic. Wait 6 months. You may be pushed into a panic move. Don't want to do that. You do not want to do that. A lot of stuff that's going on today is April Fool's, right? Because today's April Fool's Day. Well, just wanted to talk about where I was looking at it. Where did this all start with the whole April Fool's thing? So there's some thinking that says, it started around 1700. It's like, no. That's not when it started. It started in 1582. So think about that. 1582. How long ago was that? So we're in 2022. That was 1582. Look, I'm not going to try to do it off the top of my head. I'm going to stick with my calculator. IR recovering engineer. Let me give you the right number. So 440 years ago, April Fool's, 440 years of pranksters on the 1st of April. Well, why is that? Well, according to history.com, and thank you, history.com, for this information, it's speculated that it was when there was a shift from the Julian calendar to the calendar, which was created by the Romans, right? Which is why it's Julius Caesar, to the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar that we run today. Imagine that. Go back 400. If you were living 450 years ago, you would be 3 months off on when to celebrate New Year's. Who knew? How crazy is that? But in 1582, 440 years ago, there's a shift from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar. And in the Julian calendar, the year started last week of March. There was this huge celebration for the entire last week of March. That was when that was considered the New Year. And the thinking is that when this shift to the Gregorian calendar said, no, it's going to be January 1st is when we're going to start the new year. As we push the microphone all over the place today, the new year is going to start in January 1st. So some people didn't get the memo, so to speak, right? It took some time, right? We didn't have the internet. Information wasn't going as fast. There were some people that were still celebrating the Julian party week, right? It's like a giant spring break to celebrate New Year's. So they're doing the spring break party. Well, those that had already adopted to the Gregorian calendar were making fun of and taunting and harassing those that were still doing the big spring break party for the New Year's celebration that ran the last week of March and ended on April 1st. So that would be the beginning of April Fool's Day, because people were being made fun of for celebrating New Year's during that week. And over time, it evolved into pranksters doing pranks on April Fool's Day. So hopefully you're having a good April Fool's Day. Thanks for being part of Wolf's Watch. 440 years of jokes, and the interest rate is no joke. That's serious stuff, but it's Friday and it's April 1st. Have a laugh. Help someone else laugh. Pull a safe and not mean-spirited, pull a clever prank, something that's fun that everybody laughs and enjoys and talks about for months or maybe even years to come. Thanks for being part of Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf, and I will see you on the trail.